year my mom died. She died in May. We, went to the Mass for the All Souls Day, and we looked over to the left, and a lady that looked pretty much exactly like my mom. I mean, same color glasses, same hairstyle. She always had this light gray jacket that she wore. This lady had that too, and it was kind of mind-boggling.
This is Touched by Heaven. Everyday encounters with God, those moments when heaven and earth collide and we see God. We see His hand reaching out to us, attempting to get our attention, inviting us into a closer relationship. Here we share stories of encounter with angels, divine intervention, prophetic dreams, visions, near-death experiences, big and little God incidents. I'm your host, Trapper Jack. Welcome to episode 87 here at Touched by Heaven. You have a very big nativity set. I didn't realize how big ours was. I mean, Jesus, Mary, Joseph, sure. We have the three wise men and their animals that they rode in on. Elephant, donkey, camel, got that. We've got a donkey in the barn, or let's see, what else? Oxen, shepherd, sure, we have shepherd. Angels, goats, we have a goat. We have dogs and cats, some character named Philip and one named Elizabeth. Now, that's my real name, and my wife's name is Elizabeth too, but that's not why. I don't know who those guys are. Oh, we have an innkeeper, the wife, got the inn. It gets pretty extensive, but I was reading about these incredibly extensive nativity sets. You ever hear of a presepio? It's the Italian version of the nativity set. A presepio, that's the Italian pronunciation. It's all of that and more. Oh, we have a shopkeeper too, or some kind of store shop, whatever. It's somebody selling fruit. Well, that's these presepios. That's what they just keep adding on. You have, maybe you have a butcher, a candle maker. You got someone. Oh, we have someone tending the animals. We have that too. But it just goes on and on and on to the point where Jesus, Mary, and Joseph maybe are not the centerpiece. They're kind of off a little bit. It's like, well, where? It's like, where's Waldo? Wait, where? Oh, they're over there. Okay. In some of the really elaborate presepios, you don't even see Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. Say what? What's the deal on that? Yeah, they're tucked away under a tunnel or into a cave or somewhere you don't see them. Why? What is all this? What's the point? Twofold. I am told twofold. Number one, it's to put you in the position of asking yourself, where is Jesus for you at this time of year? Are you one of those people just running around going crazy and going to all those shops and doing all those things, and it's Christmas and the last thing you think of is Christ? Because that's not what Christmas is. Christmas is all these other things, and the parties and the shopping and the gifting and I'm running around and socializing, and Jesus who? It's to kind of ask yourself, where is Jesus? Is Jesus the focal point of Christmas for you and me? That's the question. The other part, when they really hide Jesus in these elaborate presepios, the thought too is this was that birthday of Jesus, just another day in Bethlehem. It was just a day in the life of Bethlehem. There was a baby being born, and life went on, totally unaware of the importance of the Christ child. So it kind of brings that to mind too. It was just a day in the life that just wasn't a typical day in the life. So I bring that up because just to remind you of who, what, where, how, what is the focal point of your Advent and Christmas season right now. The other thing is, it reminds me of a movie I just saw. I just saw the greatest Christmas movie. Elizabeth and I went to see this and it's a presepio Christmas movie. It's like, where's Jesus? Well, they don't mention Jesus. It's a Christmas. Oh, Santa Claus? No, they don't mention that. Do they mention Christmas? No. Is there a tree? No. It's tucked away. This is a great Christmas movie. It's a wonder. It is so Christ-like in its attributes of its main character. Have you seen Tom Hanks in It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood? Amazing. This movie will not leave me alone. It will not leave me alone. I saw it over a week ago. It's been a long time since a movie has not left me alone. Every day I think of some aspect of this movie where Tom Hanks does such a brilliant job playing Fred Rogers. And my wife met Fred because she lived and worked in Pittsburgh, and the ad agency that she worked at, Fred walked in one day and she became, a 6-year-old. It's Mr. Rogers. It's Mr. Rogers. But here's what jumps off the screen for me. His ability to focus, his ability to be in the moment with anybody, whether it was a 5-year-old kid or a 50-year-old kid. His ability to focus in that they were the only person in the world. Fred had that. And that convicts me. That convicts me. Because how many times am I in a conversation where it's like, what did he just say? What? Where am I? What? Where I'm someplace else. I'm somewhere else. And Fred, by all accounts, just was so good at focusing. He went to seminary, graduated in 1963, a Presbyterian minister. He lived his faith. In the movie, it talks about how he prayed. He'd go through his day and he'd write down people's names as he met them. And when he had his prayer time, he said their names out loud to God in his prayer, out loud, going through one by one. He took pictures of like everybody during the course of a day. New people, let's take a picture. I want to take the picture home and show my wife. And then he'd pray for him again. His focus, his love. The movie centers on an article, Esquire article, written about Fred, I think in 1998, and how Fred Rogers chose the author, chose the journalist to write the piece. And why did he choose that guy? He read everything that guy wrote and decided that he needed Fred Rogers. He didn't pick him because he's going to do a really nice glossy piece on me and a puff piece and just he'll make me look so good. No. He chose the writer because he felt that when he read his material that he was lacking something. When you get right down to it, he saw the brokenness in the guy. And so while he was being interviewed, Fred interviewed the writer, drove the guy nuts by the movie account. But in that, he helped heal that writer. That was Fred. I mean, Christ is running through this movie. Jesus is all through this movie. It's a Christmas movie. It's go see it. If you haven't seen it already, go see it. I think it's wonderful. It's just absolutely wonderful. And I think you'll see Christmas in this as well. I think you'll see the miracle of this movie. Now, here's the deal. I know there are people who have gone to see that movie and thought Tom Hanks did a wonderful job playing Mr. Rogers and saw nothing else and didn't see Jesus at all. Saw no Christmas, saw no Christ-like, saw no Christianity in it whatsoever, saw no godliness in it whatsoever. And a lot of people, a lot of us, did see just that. What does all this lead me to in this episode? Some people see God in everything. Some people never see him. Some people have experiences that, no question about it, there's God's hand. Some people, what God? What are you talking about? That was just a coincidence. Some people see him, some people don't. So our stories today surround those moments where I guess you could explain it away. That's just a coincidence. That just happened. That was maybe your imagination, maybe. Or it was the hand of God. It was a touched by heaven moment. So let's just grab a few stories here. Like Sue. Sue has a very interesting story, an experience that happened back in 2011. She lost her mom after a long illness with Alzheimer's in May of 2011. Then there was the All Souls Day Mass. They invite the family members of the deceased to come to this special Mass on All Souls Day in early November.
We, went to the Mass for the All Souls Day, and it was just kind of amazing when we got there and sat down and we looked over to the left, and just a couple row, pews up from us was a lady that looked pretty much exactly like my mom. I mean, I thought maybe it was just me, and I tapped my husband on the shoulder, and he looked over that way too, and you could tell by the look on his face, it was like, oh my goodness. I mean, same color glasses, same hairstyle. She always had this light gray jacket that she wore. This lady had that too, and it was kind of mind-boggling, and when she stood up, she was a little bit heavier. My mom was always very, very, very thin, especially she ended up dying of Alzheimer's, so that kind of, took a toll on her. But this lady looked healthy, like my mom, but healthy. Yeah.
So this is just like a couple of rows away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking at this woman, and it looks just like your mom, and you're there at that Mass because your mom passed.
Right. We got a letter in the mail from our church to attend that mass, because it's for, since All Souls Day is just for the people that have passed away that year. You get invited, by letter to come. And so it's not a very big crowd there. It's small gatherings. So
you must be staring holes through that woman's entire. Yeah, can you take your eyes off her?
Yeah. Well, it was kind of more like a side view too. And when we walked into mass, Father Mike asked us if we could help serve communion. But I can't remember looking straight on at her, even though I was in the front of the church helping distribute communion.
Did you give communion to her?
I don't remember that. That part is not there. I don't know.
But your husband, I think in your email you mentioned he was also a Eucharistic minister too, so he was also giving out communion, right?
Right.
Okay.
And we don't remember like face on with her. It was like a good side view, I guess.
Oh, okay, I see.
Well, she had somebody with her that was around my age, and I had just finished reading the book, Heaven is for Real. And it's about the little boy that was extremely sick, and they were on vacation. He was hospitalized. He was only 3 years old, and he almost died. And when he was doing better and back home, over a period of time, according to the book, he would like tell his parents different things, like when he went to see Jesus. And it would be things that like he saw his grandfather. And the one part I remember distinctly was he said, and I met my sister, and his mom said, in the book, your sister's right here. And he goes, no, the one that died in your belly. Well, she had never told him that she had miscarried. And he told her, he says he met her and she didn't have her name because they had not named her. And that always kind of stuck with me, because I know back years and years ago, women probably didn't know if they miscarried because they didn't have, the results weren't as quick to find out that they were pregnant. And I know my mom had a very difficult time before I was born. She was in the hospital a month before, and I guess I almost didn't make it. So I'm kind of wondering, maybe she did have a miscarriage and didn't know it. But what made me think about that was the lady that was with her, that was almost my age. All along when my mom had Alzheimer's and everything, I would say things like, okay, I need a sister or a brother, somebody to say, okay, it's your turn now, because it was a long process.
You mean you needed some relief, or what are you saying?
Yeah, with taking care of her.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, it just kind of hit me. It's like, is that like a message that my mom's okay? And hey, there's a sister there that's taking care of her now.
I mean, is this all hitting you during the Mass, or is this afterwards, or when is this hitting you of what if that's my mom and what if that's a sister that I don't know I have? I mean, your mind is like jumping at this point, obviously.
It is. It was very emotional. I was having trouble keeping it together during Mass. But what hit me was afterwards, we hadn't eaten dinner yet, and I had a gift card to Bob Evans. And so I told Gary, I says, let's go to Bob Evans. So we did. And when we walked into the restaurant, these two women were sitting there and in the restaurant. I'm like, oh my goodness. And we walked past them, and they were toward the front of the restaurant, and we got seated all the way to the back of the restaurant in like another row over. And when they finished eating, they stood up, and the lady that was around my age turned around and looked right at me and waved.
And you don't know who she is?
I don't know. I didn't know who she was at all.
Although she would have seen you at Mass, you could just have been real friendly, because I saw that woman at Mass.
That could be, but I sent Father Mike an email, because this whole experience was, pretty moving. I sent him an email, and I didn't get a reply. So when I saw him at the bazaar at church that they have, the craft bazaar, I asked him if he got my email, and he said, yeah. He said, I remember those two women. They don't go to our church.
Wow. So why were they at, unless they were there for somebody else, or unless it's your mom and somebody. So your mind is just flipping all over. Mm-hmm. The obvious question, and whenever, I don't know how often you've told this story, what's the obvious question?
If that's just a message from
No,
my
that's
mom,
not that's not the obvious question.
No.
The the obvious question is at the restaurant, why didn't you walk up and say, I got to tell you, you look just like my mom?
I guess I didn't know how to do that. I'm sorry. You look like my mom, but she's not here anymore. I don't know. I don't know why I didn't. I guess I'm not an outgoing person, to do that. But it didn't occur to me to do that.
And there may be
I don't.
something in that too that you weren't supposed to. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think there.
Bottom line, do you think it was your mom?
I think it was a message that she was okay, just because it was such a difficult time with her. She lived with us for like 8 years after my dad died, and she ended up with Alzheimer's, and it was just a really long journey for her. And the whole part of when she died was such a gift to me because like all her dignity was given back to her with a beautiful funeral mass. And and one thing that was so amazing to me was she looked so terrible at the end stages of Alzheimer's. She looked terrible the few days that she had before she died, and her face was kind of distorted, like and everything. And yeah, she just looked horrible. And we were going to actually just have a closed casket for her. And it was just going to be our kids and us and then they were going to close the casket before people came. When we got to the church and they brought her in, and it was in the back of the church, she looked like she did before she had Alzheimer's. She looked so pretty. It was just amazing. All the kids said that. They go, "Don't close the casket because she looks like she did," and people commented on that too. So I feel like it was such a difficult journey up to that point, that this was such a gift of that she's okay now.
Yeah, I would. I don't know that and I understand how you're trying to go to who's the other woman. Is that a sister? Especially after reading that book. It's a great book, by the way. I think his name, kid's name was Burpo. I want to say something.
Yes.
Burpo. It's a great story. It was a wonderful movie. Where I would go if that was your mom and if that was a sign, and I think even your inability to go up and say anything to her may have been from above as well. Like you say, it didn't even occur to you. Whereas anybody else would say, well, why didn't you walk? How come you didn't walk? But when the Spirit's at work, you just do things that you wouldn't necessarily do. But as far as the other woman goes, I kind of go to an angel in human disguise for that moment, kind of a guide, if you will, coming with her, maybe. Maybe an angel.
I just feel like I didn't see her straight, like face to face serving communion. I didn't say anything to her at the restaurant. I feel like I wasn't supposed to.
Yeah. The fact that she's wearing the very same coat or jacket or whatever that was, that's unusual. As well as the hair and the glasses and all that. I mean, everything added up to it was supposed to touch you somehow.
And the fact that Gary, it hit him the same way as it hit me. I feel like it wasn't my imagination.
Yeah. And the glasses and everything was right. I mean, we really don't know we really don't know, do we? But it certainly, but it gave you a sense of peace.
It did. It did. I really feel like it was a definite message. That's probably the biggest.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. No, I think that's beautiful. I think you got sent something there. You got sent something. The fact it would be on All Souls Day and they don't belong to that parish and he doesn't know why they were there and she's wearing the clothing she used to wear and all those things and the hair and the glasses and something there, something going on there. And the fact that they'd go to the same restaurant just to kind of drive home the point. Something there.
Yeah, I've never seen them at St. Matthew's since then.
Thanks, Sue. I'm still thinking angels on that one, both of them. Angels, just to reassure. It's All Souls Day. No one's ever seen these two before. Why are they there? Who are they connected to? No one sees them after. At the restaurant, the wave goodbye to somebody they don't know across a restaurant. Just feels like angels. Hungry angels that go to Bob Evans. Down on the farm. They love that down on the farm flavor. I don't know. Thanks for listening again to Touched by Heaven, Everyday Encounters with God. How about Jeremy? A couple of truck stories from Jeremy.
You have no idea the way you touch people. It's just totally different from anything I've ever heard before. It's real life situations to where people can relate to what you're talking to. Because prior to me listening to what you were saying, I'm like, man, I'm like really screwed up or something, or if there's something weird about me that I'm noticing this stuff, is anybody else noticing it, So hearing about it through other people in real life situations is where it's at, God is speaking through you, through those people that come onto your show.
Once God knows that you know, then he just has fun.
Oh,
He just has fun. I mean, he's able to do things with, I don't care whether it's a song that's playing or a dream that you have or...
This truck, as you see, I'm a motorhead. I was needing to get plates for this truck, Trapper. I go to the Sydney DMV, which is where we go to get her plates and stuff. Every day I carry on a conversation with Jesus. It's a continued conversation. Right before I go in there, I was like, Lord, I really need something cool. Give me, I never ask for signs, and I just never do, because I just don't. But that one, I just went, I'd like to see something that would remind me of you. Could you give me some really cool plates? Something really cool. Pay my bill, walk out the doors, walk into my car in the parking lot. I flip open the plastic, pull out the plates that says his 7925. His jumps out.
His. Capital H, his. Yeah, there you go. That's great.
I guess you'd say I'm kind of getting galvanized because I'm so used to seeing this stuff. This has been multiple years ago, is when I was taking care of my dad, and the twins were little. So I'm like, I need a new truck. And so I came across this big F-150 four-wheel drive. I mean, it sat pretty high and had these big gumbo wheels, I had to have this truck. So I sold my Ranger, got this truck. I went and had the tires rotated, had them balanced and rotated. And I drove this thing home. And later on that night, which would have been the first time I actually took it on a maiden voyage, I guess you would say, went to work. A lot of guys at work, they're Chevy guys, so they're all like, hey, look at your big Ford truck out there. I'm like, yeah, pretty cool, isn't it? But anyways, that night I got off of work. I thought, well, I'm going to go get some gas in this thing, and I'm going to drive it to Anna, which is probably 10 miles from Minster. And this is at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm driving 60, 70 mile an hour to this gas station, which is near Interstate 75, which is Anna is right next to it. I drove all the way there, got gas, driving back 60, 70 mile an hour, passing semis at night, oncoming semis, not thinking much of it. And I turned the corner and go down this long road, and the front of the truck made a weird, funky noise, didn't know what it was. Drove another 2 miles, pulled into the driveway, turned the wheel a little bit, and the whole front of the truck just dropped like a rock, and the wheel came off. All the lug nuts on the truck were gone on that front wheel. And I'm like thinking, Lord, you got to be kidding me.
Were there any lug nuts in it to begin with, or were they all missing? Yeah, they were.
They were all missing. I drove that speed, I don't know how long before there was no lug nuts, but they were all completely gone, Trapper. I'm driving up the road with no lug nuts on my front driver's wheel.
So your theory is you get this truck, you drove to work, you drove home, you drove to work, you drove to and fro this gas station and all that. I mean, you're all told, what is that, 45 minutes of driving, an hour? What was it?
Yeah, well, actually, probably I would say maybe 45 minutes after I had the tires rotated in Sydney, which I bought the truck, brought it home, took it and had the tires rotated and balanced, brought back home. And then probably roughly 45 minutes of driving because I drove to work, then drove all the way to Anna and drove all the way back. There's no lug nuts on it. So they were on it, I thought, when I left the tire shop.
So they rotated the tires, and one of the tires they forgot to put the lug nuts back in.
Possibly.
Wait a minute, lug nuts, but the lug nuts are, wait a minute, the lug nuts.
They're pretty key, yeah.
They're pretty key.
They kind of hold things together, yeah. They have surfaces that literally hold the rim to the hub, which is actually the main part of your axle, which carry the load weight of your truck or your car, whatever it's hooked to.
Yeah, when you get a flat tire, you're loosening the lug nuts to take the whole thing off, so that somehow when they were rotating, they didn't put the lug nuts back in. How many lug nuts are on a wheel? 4?
There's 5 on this one. 5 lug nuts.
Okay.
And I would have thought he would have had them on, which they should have been at that point, but somehow they must have worked off.
There's no way. Wait a minute. They were totally missing, right?
They were totally missing by the time I pulled in the driveway, because these big tires, they were relatively fancy looking aluminum rims. They must have either worked off. They completely came off the studs. They weren't stripped.
Now, I do know that sometimes they'll put things in, and as kind of a starter, it's like they'll put them in and then they'll finish the job, right? They'll kind of put them in, place them, and then, tighten them up,
with an impact wrench.
Yeah, and so it's possible that they were all in but not tightened, and then they just all fell out or whatever. But to be driving that long, pull into your driveway, and then the wheel falls off. Jeez Louise.
The first thing I thought was, I passed those semis coming on head on 60, 70 mile an hour. I've been head on into a semi or into a ditch. That's what I'm talking about. Jesus is in the grandest of things, the smallest of things. And there's no coincidences, Trapper. There is absolutely no coincidences in life. He's with everybody,
Is this the truck that has the his on it?
Oh, no, that one's all long gone.
Oh, that was well,
That's somebody else's. That's somebody else's now.
So okay, all right.
Yeah.
I would say you're still his. I don't know. Wow. I mean, now granted, a lot of that is straight driving, but I'm sure there's some turns in there too. There's some intersections. There's some lefts and rights.
Oh, yeah. Especially when I went through town to get to the gas station, I would have turned in, turned around, came back around the gas station, and straight shot back down 119, and then turned onto our road. And it isn't straight, but...
You know what I want a picture of? You know what I want a picture of? I want the picture. I want somebody to be taking a picture of you as you pull into the driveway and you hear thunk. I'm not sure you know what it is right away. I doubt it.
Oh, yeah, no. I was like, I thought maybe the suspension dropped. Okay.
And you get out and you look at your wheel lying there next to the truck.
Yeah, flipped on its side because with the turning, forced it completely off of the hub. Bam, onto its side. And the whole...
Oh, my gosh. That's the picture I want of you going, wait a minute.
Your eyes as big as they could be, He is in the mix of things. He's in the batter. You know what I'm saying? You ever baked a cake before? He's in the batter, man. He's the stirrer, dude. He's mixing it up for us, man.
Yes, he is.
So I always pray that other people see this stuff too, and I'm no different than anybody else. I've been teaching a religion class at St. Augustine, which is our church where we live in Minster, for 8 years. I always ask them, and I do this to these kids all the time if I see them out in areas, and I did this on this Washington, D.C. trip that I went with my youngest son last month, is I asked this whole class, I go, how often is Jesus with you? And these kids yell, always. I go, some of the time? Always. And they all yell it back, Trapper. These kids get it,
Thanks, Jeremy. I appreciate your time today. God bless you.
God bless you too, and thank you very much. And we'll catch you later.
Will do. Thank you. Seeing God where others don't. Let's see if you see God's hand in this one. From D.
Well, I had an unusual experience when I was younger that just reminded me of life after death. If you're interested in that, I had a cousin that I was very close to. He was like a brother to me. But, we used to do a lot of things together, and sometimes people would think we were dating. It's like, no, we're just good buddies, right? He was 21, and I think I was probably 22. We grew up together, and he was killed in a motorcycle accident. And, of course, that was horrible. That was, I think, the worst thing I'd ever been through up to that point in my life. The day after the funeral, I went up to the cemetery. It was early morning, and it was hot. It was the middle of summertime, so really hot and humid. So I tried to get out there early before it got too hot out there. And as I was looking at the flowers and just thinking about things, I noticed a hummingbird that came up to each flower, and I noticed it going from flower to flower, getting the nectar. And as I was watching the hummingbird, that still small, quiet voice just kind of said to me, even in death, there's life. And about the time I thought that, the hummingbird turned and it flew straight at me, and it just hovered right in front of my eyes for a few moments, and then it just flew away.
Wow. Right at that thought.
Right.
Yeah.
Right at that thought.
Nice. No, that's nice.
It's just so awesome to be able to have these experiences, and it's something I wish for everyone. And I'm always a little sad when I've heard of people have said they've never had any sort of experience like that.
And as I said, I think a lot of people have them, but they miss it.
Oh, yeah.
I think, I missed it for decades. And I say that with my hand in the air going, I missed it. I missed it for decades. I'm sure he was knocking on my head a bazillion times, and it was like I was just oblivious and going through my life. It's not, sometimes, there's a lot of times there's that one big moment that kind of wakes you up. But a lot of times when you get to that point, I'm sure as you do, where you're kind of looking for him, then you see him all over the place. He's all over the place.
Mm-hmm. So many of them engage me. And as I was thinking about, and this I felt prompted to get in touch with you about. Part of me was thinking, well, it's not as dramatic and exciting as some of the ones, like the man who was drowning and a hand was pushing him out of the water, or the people that were about to be in accidents and they just seemed to pass right through each other. So, but something just told me, to get in contact with you. God just told me to get in contact.
Yeah, well, and he does, and he pushes us. And I think the beauty of how God messages to us is that he uses the whole world. It can be a car passing through another car, or it can be redirecting a hummingbird. At a certain thought. It's the big and the little, and he's in it. His hand is in it, and his hand is in it. You see it, you feel it, you know it.
Yes, you sure do. And I think you're right. You hit on the correct word. It's not a belief, it's a knowing.
Yeah, he's all around us. You know it.
Thank you for listening, and hope you were doing well. I listened to you on the podcast, and gosh, I kind of feel like I know you.
Oh, God bless you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I know you too, so that's all good. It's good that we connect. I love it.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. God bless. Have a great day.
And you too.
Thanks, Dee. And it's in those small moments, I think, that sometimes, unfortunately, we tend to blow away the easiest, because God comes in so low, so obvious that it can't be him. Yeah, it can. Also, I was looking up the spiritual symbolism of a hummingbird. Eternity, continuity, love, playfulness, all that fits, certainly, in the story from Dee on this episode. What else is our takeaway? What did God just say in this episode? Principio? Sounds like a Star Wars character, but no, Principio. It's that nativity set. And is Jesus up close and personal and in the center of everything going on right now in your life, in my life. Also, best Christmas movie out there, I'm telling you. It's a Principio movie. Tucked away. It doesn't say Christmas. It doesn't even say Jesus Christ. It just has Jesus written all over it. Tom Hanks doing an incredible job as Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers, in the movie A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. And my resolution off of that is just to be more in the moment. He did it so well. He was so good at it. And that's my focus, is to stay focused better. Squirrel! Did you see that? It was, what? And also, I want to thank you for listening to this episode. I need your story. Go to touchedbyheaven.net. And I also want to thank our shout out for support on Patreon for many years, Bob Benzer. Thanks, Bob. Thank you so much for your longtime support of what we do around these here parts. And you can click through on this episode 87, to help us out on Patreon. Thank you so much. Or go to patreon.com. Just look for Trapper Jack. And I'll see you next week here on Touched by Heaven. Everyday squirrels. What? Where? I'm Trapper Jack.